Hey there and welcome back to NBA 2K18's My League mode. My name is Pete and today we complete probably one of the more important episodes for the Louisville Legionnaires, because today on the menu we have the NBA Draft. Now, let me start things off by saying thank you so much for your feedback in the last episode. I was absolutely overwhelmed by the amount of comments on that video, but be sure I have read them all and it seems like we have reached an agreement. In the question Grant McLeod versus Brandon Strong, most of you were in favor of Strong, and the results of the draft combine support that decision as well, as at least athletically, Strong absolutely crushed the competition, finishing first in all 4 measurements: sprint, lane agility, vertical, and yes, even bench press. Now, it has to be noted that McLeod and a few other of the top prospects didn't participate here, but we had a chance to invite them to a private pre-draft workout, and the results of that were pretty much the same. Strong once again leading the way in all 4 competitions, however followed closely by McLeod in sprint, lane agility, and vertical. So, with those results, let's have one last look at the available prospects before we then head into the NBA draft. Now, as you can see here, I have sorted by Draft Express Big Board rank, and that ranking actually has shooting guard Andre Flanders at 1. Now, you might rightfully think that Flanders' overall rating is a bit low to be ranked first, however, he has absurdly high potential, and he is also one of the youngest prospects in the entire class, so at least if we believe our scout, Flanders might actually be the most promising guy available this year. This also makes me very confident that he will be picked either first or second overall, so in all likelihood he will be off the board by the time we're up with our 3rd pick. Now, McLeod I can see fall anywhere from 1 to 3 really. If he's also gone by the time we pick, the decision for Strong will be an easy one, but if he's still available, I will listen to you guys and still pass on him. And last but not least, one last look at the guy that we are going to target this year, defensive specialist point guard Brandon Strong from Oregon State University. And I think you have now waited long enough, let's jump right into draft night.
With the first pick in the NBA draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Grant McLeod from the University of Kentucky.
Okay, Grant McLeod goes first overall. Not really a surprise, considering that he has by far the highest overall rating in this year's draft class. And this also means that for the point guard position we have no other choice now but to pick Brandon Strong. Okay, I have to admit I didn't really expect this to happen. So for some reason the Atlanta Hawks decide to pick Brandon Strong second overall. I can't really argue with that, considering it's the pick that we would have made, but Strong was projected to go somewhere between 3 and 5, and especially with Andre Flanders still on the board, I am a bit confused. Anyway, here we are now with the 3rd pick and both of our options gone. However, at the same time, this means that Andre Flanders is still available. And well, if the guy who was projected first overall is still available at 3, then you better take a closer look. Now, I will just give you the highlights here, but those are probably enough to see why Flanders is a very intriguing prospect. First of all, he already has a great mid-range shot at the young age of 19, a shot by the way that is even for the shooting guard position already way above average. Now, Flanders is able to drive to the basket and finish either with a layup or a dunk, so the basics are there, although they're not spectacular. For a 6'6" shooting guard, Flanders also has a pretty good post game, at least if we look at his 72 post fadeaway rating. By the way, keep in mind these are in all likelihood not his final ratings, they are just what our scout tells us. Now, Flanders is also a solid defender with ratings between the 60s and 70s, and while all of those things might not scream best player available, there is one thing that easily changes that, and that is his potential rating. Yes, Andre Flanders has, at least according to our scout, a 99 potential rating. Now, the real rating will in all likelihood be a few points below that, but even if it's only a 95, Flanders has the potential to develop into an absolute superstar. And this is also what sets him apart from the rest of the players who are still available. If we believe in our scout, and we really have no other choice, then none of the other guys here has the potential to go where Andre Flanders could go. And so I think this right here will be our guy. He might not be able to contribute on the highest level right away, but long term I think he is by far the best option available here. So Brandon Strong, sorry that you couldn't make it. Andre Flanders, welcome to the Louisville Legionnaires.
The 3rd pick in the NBA draft, Andre Flanders from Gonzaga University.
And here we can also see our scout apparently even undervalued Flanders a bit. His overall rating here, and this is the real one, listed as a 75, while our scout only had him at a 73. So we jump ahead until we're up next. Keep in mind we still have that 24th overall pick from the Spurs, and with that we now have a few players to choose from here. Now I have sorted them by their projected ranking, although the first few guys are really not all that great. Point guard Reggie Caldwell here only has a 67 overall rating, plus he is a rather bad passer and already 23 years old, and with his potential also being rather mediocre, I don't really consider him an option. Now Dion Anderson here is an excellent passer on the other hand, however his potential is no longer mediocre, it is objectively bad, and so we'll have to pass on him as well. Malcolm Jensen then provides us with a very good potential rating for a change. However, our scout rates him only as a 64 overall, and so it will likely take him at least 2 or 3 years to even make it into the rotation, if at all. Now, as a longer-term project, he is definitely an option, but I don't know, the skill set he brings with him today is just not good enough. Now, Matthew Sessions is out pretty much solely based on the fact that he's already 26 years old, and so while he is a solid defender, he will likely not develop any further, and that is not exactly the type of player we're looking for. Armando Mendes is a very good shooter for his young age, but how do I say this? Yeah, he sucks at everything else. Plus, he also does not have the potential to ever become more than a good shooter. And that brings us to Mitch Dennis. Now, spoiler alert, Mitch Dennis is the guy we're going to pick. Why? Well, first of all, Mitch Dennis is probably one of the best, if not the best, three-point shooter in this entire draft class. And with that, he could already fill a role on the Legionnaires that is not really occupied at the moment. Yes, we have a few good three-point shooters, but no one who's really on that elite level. Now, Dennis is also at least capable on defense, and so I could see him develop into a very good 3-and-D player. Development is also the important word here, because according to our scout, Dennis is one of the few guys still available who has a high potential rating. Nothing crazy, but good enough so that he should become a serviceable player, and that is why with the 24th overall pick in the 2019 NBA draft, the Louisville Legionnaires select Mitch Dennis from Arizona.
In the NBA draft, Mitch Dennis from the University of Arizona.
And that was also the last pick we had in this draft. Our second rounders were all part of previous trades. And so here's the summary. The Legionnaires welcome a new shooting guard and a new small forward to the team. Welcome to Louisville, Andre Flanders and Mitch Dennis. Our next order of business is to sign the two rookies, and of course both of them are good enough to get a contract from us. And so here we can see them in a Louisville Legionnaires uniform for the first time. We can now also have a closer look at their real ratings, and while Flanders' skill set, including his high potential rating, were more or less confirmed, his potential rating right now is 2 points below what our scout promised, so only a 97. I did have a small moment of surprise with Mitch Dennis. Well, actually I had two. The first one came when I looked at his 3-point rating. Our scout had him at an already pretty good 88, but in reality he's apparently absolutely insane from deep with a 96 open 3-point rating. Now, to be fair, the rest of his shooting skills are nothing spectacular, but that is where the second surprise comes in. Yes, Mitch Dennis has a 94 potential rating. Our scout had him somewhere in the mid-80s, I believe, so not too bad to start off with, but the 94 here definitely comes as a big surprise, albeit a very welcome one. So, it looks like the Legionnaires just lucked out big time this year. Of course, it still remains to be seen how the rookies eventually pan out, but for the moment I'm very happy with the results of this draft, because I think we just acquired at least one, maybe even two young stars in the making. So up next, let's get back to the guys who we already have for a few years, as it is now time to accept or decline team and player options. And as you can see here, we are going to accept everyone. Ulis, Hernan Gomez, Johnson and Kuzma have all been vital parts of our rotation for the past 2 years, and by picking up the team options here we can very likely get them all for way below market value, so even if there was the plan to trade one of them down the line, picking up the options at this point seems like a sensible idea to me. Now we are also going to pick up the option on Derek White, who came over from the Spurs, not only because he's cheap but also because our plan to get another point guard to Louisville in the draft failed, and so we could certainly use some help there even if White only ends up being the third option. With Omar Ashik then, no surprise, he accepts his $12 million player option, and so we head into the next stage of the offseason, qualifying offers. However, we will not extend any. Alex Abrinas is simply no longer needed on the roster, especially now that we drafted 2 more wing players. And Yogi Ferrell, well, there is a high chance we go after a point guard in free agency, now that we failed to get one in the draft. And if that succeeds, I don't really want to commit to him here, because I think he's good enough to be at least the first point guard off the bench. And if we are able to sign someone who is starting caliber material, he won't be able to play that role. Not extending the qualifying offers here will also not make these $9.5 million here count towards our cap space, which of course allows us a bit more flexibility going into free agency. And that is exactly what's up next, but let's quickly talk strategy. With the addition of our rookies, we now have 2 positions on the roster where we probably need to make some changes. The first position is obviously the point guard. Had everything gone according to plan, we would now have Brandon Strong here next to Tyler Ulis. However, Strong is now in Atlanta and Ulis could use some help. For the moment, he could continue in his role as the starter, but with the roster around him improving, I would like to move Ulis over to the bench sooner rather than later. And obviously, Derek White will also not be the player to step in. So this is our big need as we head into free agency, but the shooting guard position could also use some attention. After the draft, we now have 3 capable players here in Flanders, Richardson and Vaughn, and as sad as it is, I don't see all 3 of them get playing time. I haven't really decided yet who's going to start and who comes off the bench here, but I just don't see all 3 guys get minutes. And with Richardson earning $9.5 million and Vaughn earning $6 million a year, trading one of them away might just be the better option going forward. Now, free agency. I have declined all cap holds, and that means we now enter this free agency period with a rather lackluster $18 million in cap space. Now, if we were to trade away, for example, Rashad Vaughn and his $6 million contract, then we could bump that up to about 24. Problem is, that will very likely not get us anywhere. Let me show you what I mean. The position where we have arguably the biggest need right now is the point guard. However, there is really only one true star player available here in Kemba Walker, and then maybe another star in the making in D'Angelo Russell. Now, Walker and his $31 million price tag is completely out of our price range, while Russell is a bit more affordable provided we make the right moves. However, he is a restricted free agent and I bet the Brooklyn Nets match any offer he gets. Apart from those 2, there is really not much available here that's a substantial improvement over Tyler Ulis, at least not to a degree that would justify spending another $7 to $10 million here. At the shooting guard, the situation is surprisingly similar. While Jimmy Butler is completely out of the price range, Devin Booker might be a bit more affordable. However, just like Russell, Booker is a restricted free agent, and the Phoenix Suns are very likely ready and prepared to match any offer sheet he gets. What follows is a group of players who are definitely not bad, but also not overly intriguing, and since we already have 3 mid-70s players at the shooting guard already, I don't really think it's worth acquiring a 4th one here. At the small forward, I think it's out of the question that we are going to acquire LeBron James, and once again, the other players available here don't intrigue me all that much. The power forward position then offers 2 star players in Paul Millsap and Kevin Love. However, both of them already in their 30s with chances to return to championship contenders, and on top of that, once again, not really in our price range. Now, the only position where that is a bit different is the center, unfortunately also the position that is by far the most crowded on our roster already. Now, above everyone else, there are 4 players of particular interest here. And of course, I'm talking about Karl Anthony Towns, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid and Marc Gasol. Now, let's start at the bottom and eliminate Gasol right away. At 34 years old, I don't really think he fits in with our young core, and I'm also neither willing nor able to spend almost $37 million on him. Now, Joel Embiid is definitely a bit more in our price range. However, once again, he is a restricted free agent, and to be honest, I don't see the Sixers letting him walk. The same thing is true for Karl Anthony Towns at the top of the list, and that leaves only Nikola Jokic. Jokic is the only star player here who is both affordable and an unrestricted free agent. However, the Denver Nuggets, as his previous team, have the option to offer him a 5-year max contract, an offer that even if we wanted to, we simply cannot compete with. So, this leaves us once again at a point where we need to make a decision. The way I see it, we have 2 options available here. Number 1, we trade away a few contracts and clear up a bit of cap space to get us into that $25 million range, with the first priority being D'Angelo Russell at the point guard. The chances that the Brooklyn Nets or any other team does not match an offer sheet are slim at best, and we could realistically end up trading 2 of our players away and get nothing in return. This first option is definitely high risk, high reward. The second option would be to stay relatively quiet in free agency. We could go after a few role players, and I already have one very particular guy in mind, but apart from that we wouldn't make any unnecessary signings, so that next season when Omar Asik's $12 million contract comes off the books, we can once again try and make some noise. In the second option, we would not trade away anyone immediately, but I would definitely want to put together a good package to maybe trade for a starting caliber point guard during the season. That player would then likely not be a star on the level of Kemba Walker, but maybe we have enough pieces to get a solid low 80 overall player for the next 2 or 3 seasons. And this is once again the point where I hand it over to you guys. What do you think? Clear some cap space and then go for it in free agency with a high risk of getting nothing in return? Or would you rather play it safe and see if we can't get a quality player at the point guard in a trade? As always, leave your comments down below. Even if I won't be able to answer all of them, I promise I will read them all, and so we'll be back with a decision in the next episode. In the meantime, leave a thumbs up if you like this one, and of course, if you want to support the channel, then go ahead and click on subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!